Ravenswood Manor? Even the name sent shivers down one's spine. It stood atop Widow's Hill, a brooding silhouette against the bruised canvas of the twilight sky. The manor was a relic of a bygone era, its once grand facade now shrouded in creeping ivy and decay. It was a place whispered about in hushed tones, a place where shadows held secrets and the air hung heavy with unspoken tragedies. Locals spoke of Ravenswood in hushed whispers, their voices laced with fear and superstition. They told tales of strange lights emanating from the windows and disembodied whispers carried on the wind. Some claimed to have seen spectral figures gliding through the overgrown gardens, their mournful cries echoing in the night. Ravenswood was not merely a house, it was a spectre, a monument to forgotten sins and undying sorrow. Its presence loomed over the small town below, casting a long, dark shadow that seemed to stretch into the very soul of those who dared to approach. The manor had stood empty for nearly a century, its secrets locked away behind its crumbling walls. But now, a lone figure stood at the foot of the hill, her gaze drawn to the manor like a moth to a flickering flame. Her name was Sophie Caldwell, and she was about to unlock the secrets that Ravenswood had guarded for so long. Sophie Caldwell was a journalist with an insatiable thirst for the unknown. Drawn to mysteries like a moth to a flame, she possessed a keen intellect and an unwavering determination to uncover the truth. When she received a cryptic invitation to Ravenswood Manor, she knew she had stumbled upon a story unlike any other. Lord Nathaniel Blackwood, the reclusive owner of the manor, had requested her presence, promising to reveal the truth behind the legends that swirled around his ancestral home.
Intrigued by the prospect of unraveling Ravenswood's secrets, I packed my bags and set off on a journey into the heart of darkness. I've always been drawn to the strange and unusual. While other children read fairy tales, I devoured ghost stories and tales of the macabre. I believe that the truth lies hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be unearthed by those brave enough to seek it out.
Ravenswood Manor, with its dark history and sinister reputation, was the ultimate challenge for a journalist like Sophie. She was determined to separate fact from fiction, to unravel the mysteries that had haunted the manor for centuries. Little did she know that her investigation would lead her down a path fraught with danger and despair, where the line between the living and the dead blurred beyond recognition. The journey to Ravenswood Manor was like travelling back in time. Sophie's car bumped along the narrow, winding road, the headlights cutting through the dense fog that clung to the moors like a shroud. As she drove deeper into the desolate landscape, a sense of unease settled over her. The air grew heavy with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, and the silence was broken only by the mournful cry of a distant bird. It was as if nature itself was warning her to turn back, to abandon her quest and return to the safety of civilization. The closer she got to the manor, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. The fog thickened, swirling around the car like a living entity. The trees that lined the road seemed to reach out with skeletal branches, their bare limbs clawing at the sky as if in silent agony. As the last rays of sunlight faded below the horizon, Sophie finally reached the gates of Ravenswood Manor. They were wrought iron, twisted and gnarled by years of neglect. The Blackwood family crest, a raven perched atop a skull, loomed above her, its eyes seeming to follow her every move. Taking a deep breath, Sophie stepped out of the car and into the chilling embrace of Ravenswood. Within the manor's grip shadows and whispers. The manor's interior was just as oppressive as its exterior. Dust lay thick on every surface, and cobwebs hung from the high vaulted ceilings like macabre decorations. The air was stale and musty, heavy with the scent of decay and long-forgotten memories. Sophie shivered, wrapping her arms around herself as if to ward off the chill that seemed to emanate from the very walls. Each room she entered seemed to hold its own secrets, whispering tales of sorrow and despair. She wandered through the darkened hallways, her footsteps echoing eerily in the silence. Portraits of long-dead Blackwoods stared down at her from the walls, their eyes following her every move. In the grand ballroom, where music and laughter had once filled the air, now only dust motes danced in the pale moonlight that filtered through the grimy windows. Sophie could almost hear the strains of a mournful waltz, the ghostly echoes of a bygone era. As she explored further, she discovered a hidden room tucked away at the end of a narrow passage. Inside, she found stacks of old journals, their leather covers brittle with age. These were the diaries of Eloise Blackwood, a young woman who had lived and died at Ravenswood Manor centuries earlier. As Sophie began to read, she was drawn into a world of forbidden love, dark secrets, and a tragedy that had echoed through generations. Eloise and Sebastian, a love story etched in tragedy. Eloise Blackwood's diaries were filled with longing and despair. She wrote of her love for Sebastian, a young man forbidden to her by her family's strict social standing. Their love was a secret, hidden away from the prying eyes of society. They met in secret, stealing moments of stolen happiness in the shadow of Ravenswood's imposing wall.
His kind eyes, his gentle touch, the way he made me feel like the only woman in the world.
But their love was doomed from the start. The Blackwood family had a long-standing feud with Sebastian's kin, a bitter rivalry that stretched back generations. Their secret meetings did not remain hidden for long. One fateful night, Eloise's brother discovered their tryst. Blinded by rage and jealousy, he confronted Sebastian and a duel ensued.
Eloise, I love you, always.
Sebastian, fatally wounded, died in Eloise's arms. Eloise, heartbroken and driven to madness by grief, refused to believe that Sebastian was gone. She wandered the halls of Ravenswood, her cries of anguish echoing through the empty rooms. She swore that she would find a way to bring him back, no matter the cost. Her obsession with Sebastian consumed her, leading her down a dark path of forbidden magic and ancient rituals. It was said that she made a pact with forces beyond human comprehension, offering her soul in exchange for the chance to reunite with her lost love. The Curse of Ravenswood, whispers of a bygone tragedy. The locals whispered about a curse that had befallen Ravenswood Manor following Eloise's death. They said that her grief and despair had seeped into the very fabric of the house, tainting it with her sorrow. Some claimed that Eloise's spirit still wandered the halls, searching for Sebastian and tormenting those who dared to cross her path. Others spoke of strange and unsettling occurrences, objects moving on their own, disembodied voices whispering in the darkness, and fleeting glimpses of spectral figures lurking in the shadows. The Blackwood family, once a proud and powerful lineage, had been plagued by misfortune and tragedy ever since Eloise's death. Some whispered that it was the price they paid for their ancestors' sins, that the curse of Ravenswood would follow them until the end of their days. As Sophie delved deeper into the history of Ravenswood Manor, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. The air seemed to grow colder and the shadows seemed to twist and writhe at the edge of her vision. She began to experience strange and unsettling occurrences. Doors slamming shut on their own, the sound of footsteps following her through the empty corridors, and the feeling of a cold, unseen presence brushing past her in the darkness. She tried to rationalize these events, to dismiss them as tricks of her imagination or the product of her overactive imagination. But deep down, a primal fear gnawed at her, whispering that there were forces at work within Ravenswood Manor that defied logical explanation. The séance, a dance with the unseen. Determined to uncover the truth, Sophie decided to hold a séance in the very room where Eloise had spent her final days. With a pounding heart, she arranged candles in a circle on the floor, their flickering flames casting dancing shadows on the walls. She placed Eloise's diary in the center of the circle, hoping that it would serve as a conduit to the other side. As the grandfather clock in the hallway chimed midnight, Sophie closed her eyes and began to speak.
Eloise, I call to you. Please reveal yourself, share your story. Break the silence that has shrouded Ravenswood Manor for centuries.
The air grew heavy with anticipation, the silence pressing down on Sophie like a physical weight. The candles flickered violently, their flames casting grotesque shapes on the walls. A cold breeze swept through the room, rustling the pages of Eloise's diary, and then Sophie felt it, a presence. Something unseen had entered the room, something cold and ancient and filled with an unspeakable sadness. The temperature plummeted and the air crackled with an unseen energy. Sophie's breath caught in her throat, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. She wasn't sure if she wanted to open her eyes or keep them tightly shut.